Good morning, friends. In India, blind faith is a profession जिसे हम अंध भक्ति कहते हैं। हमारे देश में अंध भक्तों की एक बहुत बड़ा स्थान है। Those followers of blind faith occupy an important position in the Indian society and have a considerable influence in the thinking and behavior of a large section of Indians. Not necessarily only from the lower strata of the society, but also from very elite individuals, from the so called VIP or VVIP groups of the population fabric of India. In fact, this blind faith is a part of the culture of sections of the Indian society that has touched every Indian's life at some point or the other in the journey of his life. Even keeping aside that part of our life when we are relatively innocent or ignorant, many adults and even mature adults have experienced or allowed blind faith to impact his or her life. For that matter, it could be applicable for any person across the globe, but the influence is glaringly visible in India. And so you may find more references to the Indian context in the course of this discussion today. So a case in point is the day before yesterday, my maid mentioned that her account was with HDFC. And I had been reading about the problems in HDFC just the previous day. And so I mentioned to her, why don't you open an account in some other bank as well? So I asked her to go and get an account opening form from the nearby Canara Bank as well as Axis Bank, and that I would help her in filling it out. I insisted that she go that day itself, that's on the 30th, as 31st, and the first would be closing and the staff would be busy. Later, when I called her up to inquire, she didn't lift the phone. So I left it at that. But in half an hour, there was a storm and it started raining heavily. So I messaged her, did she manage to get the form? She replied, पैसे पडायला लागले म्हणून नाही जमलं. Which means that the money started raining and so I couldn't get it. So I thought she had made a mistake in spelling or something. So I just corrected saying pause, that is rain. But later I realized that this was not a mistake actually in a message. People in India do believe that when it rains, money is going to pour. This is the belief not only here, even in South India. Once I was in Chennai when there was a forecast that there would be showers and a storm, and the storm started building up, and my cousins were all excited and said, money is coming, money is arriving, it's going to rain now. And the storm passed away as quickly as it had come, and their face fell in disappointment. And they actually felt sad that the money which was to come had been taken away elsewhere. And they are graduates, not a fourth pass or fourth fail. So, the subject of my discussion today is how we try to clothe ourselves to hide our blind beliefs. We try to project a picture of ourselves different from what we truly are from within. We want to make people believe us to be a certain way. And so present ourselves by dressing a certain way, speaking with a certain accent, or behaving loudly, or appearing to be flamboyant, to hide a certain aspect of ourselves with which we are not comfortable with. We are aware that people form an impression in the minds about us within the first few seconds of even just looking at us. And that opinion which is formed in their minds has a great influence, and so we try to dress impeccably so that that first impression that gets registered is good, and it's a good favorable impression before we even start speaking. Now this is a big subject of study. In fact, it's a science in itself. In fact, I too studied image management. a certification course. In fact, the subject of image management was introduced in a big way as a business model by the Consulting Business Institute by Rakesh and Suman Agarwal in collaboration with the First Impression Consulting Private Limited with a curriculum from the US with a curriculum designed by Madam Judith Rasband, who was a master in image management and the director of the Council Institute of Image Management. The subject had reached its peak of specialization in USA and Canada and was ripe to arrive in India. And I had done this course in the year around 2009-10 or so, which was leading to a certification as an image consultant. My interest in doing the course was because I had been selected for the second. I'll just give you a brief context in this regard. I had been selected for the second tenure as a faculty in the Regional Staff Training College of the bank, where I worked, and I was selected as a faculty for core banking, and was assigned the regions of Maharashtra outside Bombay and Chhattisgarh region. So I had the opportunity, in fact, I had to visit all the branches for hands-on training, as well as some other states wherever faculty was required. So during that time, I also got a chance to be deputed to the NIBM, that is the National Institute of Bank Management at Kondwa in Pune, for a course in SME and also self-help group for empowerment of women. So in the course on SME, I found that there were just 2 women participants. And the other lady, who was a very young manager and maybe of around 28 years or so, and she was from the S Bank. She used to come in formals with a full suit, and I was dressed as usual in a sari, of course. Of course, I was comfortable in it. But I found that she presented herself differently. She was more confident. Although I had more knowledge and more experience on the subject, but she drew more attention than me. And yes, there was an age difference. I may have been 49, 50, but I was not the ignorable kind. So, but my participation went unnoticed. So this made me thinking. And besides, during the course of my visits to various branches, I also observed that Yes Bank and the new upcoming banks at that time, ICICI Bank, HDFC, which were attracting more crowds than our bank, which was a nationalized bank, which was around 100 years old. And I was teaching core banking, and so I knew what kind of banking experience we would be offering in the future. We had the experience, the expertise, and real banking knowledge at the core. And yet, this young staff of these, excuse me, of these private sector banks were drawing the educated, wealthy, high value clients, and we were catering to the masses, literally slogging it out. So, to my observant eyes, I felt that if we could present ourselves differently as they did, with formals and a professional appearance at the office, and adopt their style of speaking and behavior, we could have an edge. That was what interested in me, to get to know more about the subject on image management. And when the course offered itself, I immediately enrolled for it, and it was a year-long course. But then, by the time I was doing the course, completed the course, I got a promotion. I was posted as a senior manager in one of the branches. This was a rotation from faculty. Again, we go to the field, and again come back as a faculty with better experience. Now, coming to the subject on how image is carefully constructed, both in appearance and how we present ourselves. The process itself is very detailed, involving study of the structure of the human body, the frame, the angles of the face, the color of the skin, its tone and texture, and how to match the clothes to the shape of the body to give a balanced appearance, which also included the texture, quality, and material used in the clothing. Then it also involved, there were 10 levels or style scales separately for men and women, beginning from untailored, casual tailored, softly tailored, and 10 scales in each of those according to the occasion for a variety of roles and goals. So it was really intensive. That means in some you could have without collar or just plain neck or half neck, half collar and box collar, and variety of such details had to be studied in the subject. Again, these clothes had to be matched with what color of the skin, of course, even matching the hair color with the lipstick that you wear and everything. But again, while we were looking at the dress or the appearance of the clothes and all the accessories, it had to be matched with what values you hold true to yourself. So, based on a long list of personality traits of what holds value for you in terms of emotions, feelings, and how that influences what you decide to wear, we ascertain under what classification we fall into. That is, there's a whole lot of list like modesty and flamboyant or theatrical and like that, and then we classify into certain and then put them into different categories. They fall into theatrical, exploratory, sensory, religious, political, social, academic, or economic. So you can fall under one or more category. And so you have to study the combinations of the style of both and also the values that are important to you and the personality that you want to project when you're in the social situation or interacting with public. For example, what value do you want your clothes to represent? Our values influence our clothing, and that in turn can be a motivating force. See, on days when we are wearing our favorite cloth or a favorite dress or a sari or a suit, you feel more confident. There is that extra bit of spring in your step. You feel lighter. You want to talk to people. You're more outgoing. On other days, your dress itself may be depressing. And even on an otherwise good day, you really feel miserable. And it actually even turns out that way. So it's even psychological how appearances influence your moods. Some clothing values that could be important to you are beauty, modesty, originality, economy, or you want to impress people. Or it could even be comfort for some easy care, versatility, which is appropriate, durability, and so on. So you select the clothing material and attire based on the values you cherish. And this could also evolve over a period of time. Just the Sunday, I was reading an article in the newspaper which was speaking on Ranveer Singh of how his dressing style has changed from loud, large prints, loose, baggy clothes to a more sophisticated, dignified, slim fit clothing style now, and how his dressing sense has evolved with his personality. That aspect will need a deeper dive as far as personality, but outwardly, from the very clothes and appearance, people decide on how you have evolved over a period of time and come to conclusions based on that. Whereas I have also been successful in camouflaging myself in my outward appearance and my internal growth to great extent, mainly due to this understanding and knowledge of how others perceive us and how important it is that others should perceive us in a certain way or not, and how our comfort level is in each and every case, in each and every situation. So it also depends on how much we want to expose parts of ourselves to others. It's important to note that it largely depends on the positions we hold in society and the role we are called upon to play. I remember in one of the shows of Kapil Sharma, he was just making a comment, as he usually does, when Amitabh Bachchan was on his show, and he says, आप तो घर में भी सूट बूट पहन के ही रहते होंगे ना. So you keep that image that you want to be maintained as others perceive you, vis-a-vis how you would like others to perceive you. So the questions to be asked are how important it is to impress others, how important it is to appear to impress others, how important it is to influence others, how important it is to be different from others. Is it important to appear modest, to have the body covered? Is it important to attract attention? Is creativity important? There are people who buy exclusive saris. There will be only one print of that sari. In fact, I know of shops that who give opportunities for exclusive preview of new saris or that have come into their shop, into the stock, and they would offer it first to their favorite customers a previous day before it is offered to the public. Then again, it is necessary to have the real thing, no fakes. Just as in everything else, how we deal with others, how authentic we appear or we are in dealing with others, get reflected in what we wear. If we wear fake things, or there will be a tendency to believe that they could be, the person also could be fake. So I remember at one point of time, I was traveling to Nagpur by train, and the train, as you know, leaves Pune in the evening, and we arrive in the morning, well in time to go for work at Nagpur. So, and in those days, I was also studying gems and crystals and the energetic impact of these gemstones on the human body. So I had been wearing a real 8 to 9 carats Pushkaraj ring in gold on my index finger, and a 6 to 7 carat emerald ring on my little finger on my right hand, and a diamond solitaire ring on the in gold in left. So it was a second or a third AC train, and there were two or three other men in that section. And as usual, I was reading some book, and before going to sleep. Then one of them just after inquiring casually about where I was going, and just a friendly what I was doing, etc. He mentioned, "Don't worry, we are from the CID department. You can sleep safely." So I didn't quite understand why, but I just smiled and acknowledged and went to sleep. Next morning, as they were getting down at a place just where the train halts at a place before the last but one station, I heard them remarking to each other about the genuineness of my ring, of the stones on my ring, and also matching my profession. So what I want to bring out is that people who really see know what they are seeing, and they assess your value in terms of not only momentarily, but momentary vision or sight, glance, but also your integrity. And I was just wearing ordinary clothes, it was just a cotton chudidar, and it was not very loud. So that again makes one thing, if we really observe and take notes to see what you're looking for in a person, it reveals a lot. This has nothing to do with being a detective mindset, but everything to do with how much you're able to observe and how much you care to observe. Remember, when you observe, you forget yourself and you are not there anymore. So it's all about what you observe. So the more you spend effort in how you appear to others, or how you want to appear to others, or how you want to manipulate others as to how they should think you are to them, then you have moved miles away from authenticity. This science of image and its management is useful only as long as what is within us is expressed also externally and both match or are in alignment with what purpose it serves for the highest good. This highest good may be both for you and for others. This depends on what role you're playing in society, what your duties are in society, and how you impact those people whom you meet and their well being, and how that in turn impacts you. So, merely putting on an appearance to please others will pull you down in the long run to a situation when you just can't handle it anymore. Because what you feel within will not match to the appearance that you're putting on. That's when it reaches an extreme and you'll say enough is enough. And you do what is in your interest. So this is out of a sense of self-preservation. Now, this desire to self preservation may also take the form of image management. And this is a big one. It is out of the desire that all attention should be on you, and then you go all out to ensure that focus is on you and you alone. This arises out of the knowing that energy flows where attention goes. So you dress to stand out amidst others, where all others are wearing, say, black suits. You come up with a spotless white kurta and pajama and a different color jacket to add the third layer for scale and status. So you appear prominent in a photo shoot and are seen and visible. So this is a good boost for your ego when there is a setting for the main course to come. But if this itself becomes a main course, then the people are left wondering what all that was about. Carried over a period of time, or even once too often, it becomes a mockery of what you stand for and what you have come to represent. Since I began with Andh Bhakti and Andh Shraddha, is all a well oiled profession overflowing onto the mainstream media, television, and even public and social settings. It's not wrong, but this overloads the person with more energy than necessary. So, when there is no goal, no plan, no vision, except that of having a vision, after fulfilling that, the present vision of winning all the people on your side, whether they like it or not, even if you succeed at least temporarily brainwashing, even if it means stealing one to cheat another, they're all efforts that will ultimately lead you down spiraling into a rabbit hole, leaving you like Alice in Wonderland, wondering, how did I land here in the first place? This is what when illusion becomes delusion. It begins with attraction, then fascination, then wanting to enjoy it, experience it, and then to possess it. The possession becomes addiction, and then it becomes high maintenance and an unquenchable thirst for more. And when you have carefully constructed a whole ecosystem of blind believers, you have created a new profession. So, this science of image management has been conveniently packaged and marketed to suit an agenda that has no purpose except the release of that agenda alone. Who will do the work on that agenda? If at all any constructive work is mentioned there, with an end result in mind, and not for mere manipulation of the masses with only the next election in sight. In the process of accumulating power, of electoral votes or of those who vote for the government, and finding every excuse or manufactured reason possible to manipulate that voting list. So you have only people who vote favorably for you. Then that kind of power accumulated without batting an eyelid may run into millions across the country. Other governments are also unable to do anything or strongly object to these gross unjust practice on the citizens of the country, as they too are guilty of malpractices, and in some states in connivance with the party in power or having got protection from that party. Thus, both citizens and political opponents are unable to meet eye to eye. There seems to be no solution in sight. The West is so entrenched in using weakness of leaders so as to garner influence of weak leaders of nations and rewire their minds with false promises of security and engage them to come to terms with their line of thinking and set up systems and processes that are suited to their goals, which are in sync only with their own intentions or assumptions or even illusions. Under such circumstances, if we make image only that our only job and have successfully aligned the entire media to perpetuate that image and made all well wishers subservient to that by any means whatsoever, then you're stuck with that image and totally alienated to what your values are or should be. And we can easily relate to the position we as a nation, India, find ourselves in terms of our leadership and also the world running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Firing and cross firing, tit for tat, disturbing and destroying others, with the hope and belief that you'll be spared, is like living in a dream balloon. Why have we brought ourselves to this position? In an earlier talk on Dharma, we had already discussed how time and time again India had been attacked in the past 2000 years, and all the libraries destroyed, all centers of learning destroyed, gurukuls, education systems totally reconstructed to suit Western thinking, or in ways that will bend the Indian thinking to be in service of the Western industries. Still, Indian culture thrived. Traditions were revived time and time again. How was this possible? How is this happening? This has been the curiosity of the world towards India up until now, when our leaders seem to have sold our land, our companies, our resources to individuals and companies who are functioning in the interest of power centers abroad, and have reached a certain low point in our history when things don't seem redeemable, as there are still elements who are supporting these powers in spite of knowing their irregularities and helplessly continuing with the same momentum. Is it really irredeemable? Are the seeds sown by our rishis and divine incarnations on this land being so fragile? Let us revisit what Max Muller had spoken about India in his lectures at the University of Cambridge in 1882. He said, in a study of the history of the human mind, in that study of ourselves, our true selves, India occupies a place which is second to no other country. Whatever sphere of the human mind may be selected for special study, whether it's language, religion, mythology, or philosophy, whether laws, customs, primitive art, or primitive science, we must go to India. Because some of the most valuable and most instructive materials in the history of man are treasured up there and there only. He talks eloquently about the Aryans of India, the framers of that wonderful language of Sanskrit, the workers in the construction of our fundamental concepts, the fathers of the most natural religions, the makers of the most transparent mythologies, the inventors of the most subtle philosophies, and the givers of the most elaborate laws. So he says, it is a purpose that if we want to go for advance for higher aims, go to India. The first Ionian sages lighted the torch of philosophy at the altar of Zoroaster. But even after the first, Zarathustra was an exponent and not the originator of the religion and science of light. So we are thus carried by this route back to the ancient Aryan home for the sources for which so many golden streams have issued. In the Sanskrit books and mantras, we must look for treasures that make human souls rich. Perhaps we have been too much disposed to regard India or the former world as a wonderland, a repertoire of folklore or snake charmers or a theatre of gross and revolting superstitions. But these primeval people, in their way and in a language akin to ours, adored the Father in heaven and contemplated the future of the soul with a sure and certain hope. So, in the classical Sanskrit, we may read with that with what success the children of men who journeyed from the ancient Aryan home into Punjab and Aryavrata have ventured. So they look inward upon themselves, upward to something not themselves, and see whether they could not understand a little of the true purpose of that mystery which we call life upon earth. So it was perfectly natural as well as perfectly right that as a beholder who looked at the sun, looked at the infinity beyond it. So he was a follower of the light. Speaking of an Indian, he says he was a follower of the light, not from the sense or the logical understanding, but from the eternal world point of view. Clouds are dark to those who are beneath them. But on the upper side, where the sun shines, if you're flying in an aeroplane, when you're on top of the clouds, they glow with golden splendor. Let us contemplate India fraternally, and upon that side, where the radiance of the divine sheds a refulgent illumination. In fact, he says there are few Oriental scholars whose works are read and who have acquired a certain celebrity in England. And one of them was Sir William Jones, as called him one of the most enlightened sons of men, as Dr. Johnson called him, and Thomas Colebrook. There are many others as well. A study of the Greek literature has its own purpose, and a study of Sanskrit literature has its own purpose. Sanskrit literature, if studied only in a right spirit, is full of human interest, full of lessons which even Greek could never teach us. This is a part of the speech that he is giving in 1882 at the University of Cambridge. So he continues, if I were to look over the whole world to find out that country most richly endowed with all the wealth, power, and beauty that nature can bestow, in some parts, a very paradise on earth, I should point to India. If I were asked under what sky the human mind has most fully developed some of its choicest gifts, has most deeply pondered on the greatest problems of life, and has found solutions to some of them which will deserve attention, even those who have studied Plato and Kant, I would still point to India. And if I were to ask myself from what literature we hear in Europe, who have been nurtured mostly by the Greeks and Romans, and Jewish, may draw that corrective which is most wanted in order to make our inner life more perfect, more comprehensive, more universal, in fact, more truly human, a life not for this life only, but a transfigured and eternal life. Again, I should point to India. We are speaking of two different Indias. I'm thinking chiefly of India such as it was 2000 years ago, or maybe 3000 years ago. This India of 2000 or 3000 years ago, the India of today also, if only you know where to look for it, is full of problems. The solution of which concerns all of us, even us in the Europe of the 19th century. If you care for geology, there is work for you from the Himalayas to Ceylon. If you are fond of botany, there is a flora rich enough for many hookers. If you are a zoologist, think of Haeckel, who is just now rushing through Indian forests and dredging in Indian seas, and to whom his stay in India is like the realization of the brightest dream in life. If you are interested in ethnology, why India is like a living ethnological museum. If you are fond of archaeology, if you have ever assisted at opening of a barrow in England and know the delight of finding a fibula or a knife or a flint in a heap of rubbish, read General Cunningham's annual reports of Archaeological Survey of India. And you'll be impatient for the time when you take your spade and bring to light the ancient viharas or colleges built by the Buddhist monarchs of India. If we were ever amused by collecting coins, from the soils of India, you will find coins which are Persian, Carian, Thracian, Parthian, Greek, Macedonian, Scythian, Roman, and even Mohammedan. The study of mythology has assumed an entirely new character, chiefly owing to the light that has been thrown on it by the ancient Vedic mythology of India. But though the foundation of a true science of mythology has been laid, all details has yet to be worked out and could be worked out nowhere better than in India. Again, if you are a student of jurisprudence, there is a history of law to be explored in India, very different from what is known of the history of law in Greece, in Rome, and in Germany, and yet both by its contrast and similarities, full of suggestions to the student of comparative jurisprudence. New materials are being discovered every year, as for instance the Dharma or Samayakarika, which have applied the materials for the later metrical law books, such as the famous laws of Manu, what was once called the Code of Laws of Manu, and confidently referred to 1200 or at least 500 BC, is now hesitatingly referred to perhaps as a 4th century AD, and neither called as a code or a code of laws, least of all the Code of the Laws of Manu. You'll find yourselves everywhere in India between an immense past and an immense future, with opportunities such as the old world could but seldom, if ever, offer you. Take up the burning questions of the day. Popular education, higher education, parliamentary representation, codification of laws, finance, immigration, poor law, and whether you have anything to teach and to try or anything to observe and learn, India will supply you with a laboratory such as exists nowhere else. If only you will carry it on, as you may carry it on here at Cambridge, better than anywhere else, will open before you large layers of literature. He's talking of Sanskrit, as yet almost unknown and unexplored, and allow you an insight to an strata of thought deeper than any you have known before, and rich in lessons that appeal to the deepest sympathies of the human heart. Depend upon it. If only you can make leisure, you'll find plenty of work in India for your leisure hours. India is not, as you may imagine, a distant, strange, or a very curious country. India for the future belongs to Europe. It has its place in the Indo European world. It has its place in our own history, in what is the very life of history, the history of the human mind. You know how some of the best talent and the noblest genius of our age has been devoted to the study of the development of the outer or material world? The growth of the earth, the first appearance of living cells, their combinations and differentiation, leading up to the beginning of organic life and its steady progress from the lowest to the highest stages, all these, is it not an inward or an intellectual world which has to be studied in its historical development from its first appearance to that is at its demonstrative roots till what we see and what are the various stages of progress from the lowest to the highest? And in that study of the history of the human mind, in that study of ourselves, of our true selves, India occupies a place second to none. Whatever sphere of human mind you may take, with its language, religion, mythology or philosophy, laws or customs, primitive art or science, everywhere you have to go to India, whether you like it or not. Because some of the most valuable and most instructive materials in the history of man are treasured up in India and India alone. This was what Max Muller said in 1882. It's interesting, and we feel pride in quoting Professor Max Muller, who had seen the glory of India's past. But I would like to quote now our own Dr. P. Balachandran, who after leaving RBI became a part of the most revered institute, the Institute of Banking and Finance, the certifying authority of the CIB examinations for a qualification for every banker for promotion. I would like to quote from his book, Leaving and Living Gracefully. Dr. T.C. Nair of the SEBI, in his foreword to the book, writes, Bala's book is a story of people who tread the sands of desert seeking oasis and forget to set forth that once reaching there, they have no compassion for others who are yet on their way, fighting the desert storms, as they don't yet know that to deny yourself is godly, but making way for others is heavenly. In his own words, everything on earth is positive, and at that, even a stopped watch shows the right time twice a day. So he pleads for the need to be gentle, reasonable, amiable, compassionate, and empathetic, to have a better tomorrow, which could help Indians lead the world. He, in fact, concludes the book with an epilogue, that is, Dr. Balachandran concludes the book with epilogue on Chakde, India. Chakde, India, the movie that keeps repeating many times on TV. I too share his thoughts on the movie because I too, as a faculty, had purchased the movie in two CDs for our regional staff training college at Pune, and where I retired as a principal. And I used to use this movie for as a case study for various aspects of interpersonal relationships, sessions, team building, motivation, and used to have group discussions on the movie after um, showing the movie. So he writes, it's a fact that as a nation, we have very few achievements to celebrate, more so in the area of vis-a-vis many as compared to other countries. He writes, if youngsters ask me, what can I learn from this movie? So he lists out a few points. We have to identify as Indians first and rise above our affiliations with our states, religion, and caste. Second, we must accept meritocracy and enthusiastically play the role we are best suited to. Third, we must embrace discipline to strictly follow every step required for success. Four, we have to put the interests of our nation ahead of our personal interest, subordinating our egos and biases. Finally, we have to put in tremendous hard work and make short term sacrifices for long term glory. Chak de India. Thank you.